Hello there. Welcome. My name is Caitlin. I am a registered dietitian. I'm also a culinary nutritionist and trained chef. And we are going to be talking about nutrition for healthy families this morning. A little bit of housekeeping. We are at the mercy of the internet. If you were to get disconnected for some reason, don't worry, this is being recorded and you will have a copy of this provided for you guys. And then if I get disconnected, just give me a minute to hop back on. And that should do it. All right, we will stay on mute today and communicate only through chat. It just makes it easier for me. And my first question for you guys, before I get started, I like to know, do you guys have kids? Because part of this is about kids, and I like to, if you do have kids, type it into the chat and then type how old they are. I'm going to go ahead and open up my chat to see if anyone responds. It's just helpful for me. And my other question is, I have done a lot of cooking demonstrations with you guys. Wondering if you've done any. One on the way. Congratulations, Michelle. Wondering if you've done any of my cooking demonstrations before. All right, well, those are my questions. Now, I want you to think about when you were a kid, sitting at your kitchen table or your dining room table, and I want you to think about what a normal dinner would look like for you. Or think about like maybe your favorite dinner as a kid, and you don't have to type it into the chat or anything, just think about it. And I want you to think about, was it a protein, starch, and vegetable? Was it homemade? Did your mom just warm it up out of the freezer? Did your dad cook? Did you guys have fast food? I'm just curious, because a lot of what we know comes from how we were raised as kids. Michelle says she's seen a cooking demo and loved it. Thank you. Welcome as everyone is coming on. We are talking about nutrition for healthy families, and we were just thinking about how a lot of what we learn about nutrition comes from our parents, because the sad truth of it is that we don't learn much about nutrition in school. In elementary school. So let me share some startling statistics with you. So children, or they're considered children, anywhere from ages 2 to 19 years old, that population, nearly 20% of that population of individuals is considered to be overweight or obese. So 20% of children are overweight or obese. That is very scary. Over 40% of adults are considered overweight or obese. Every single year, the leading cause of death in the United States is heart disease. One person dies every 36 seconds of heart disease. And 34 million Americans have diabetes. Now, of all those statistics that I just listed, there's one thing in common, and that thing in common is that every single one of those things has to do with food intake, which is really frightening. Now, some diabetes and some heart disease comes from family history, but still, if you have those things, the foods that you eat are still going to affect them. So we need to prevent things like diabetes and heart disease in our children and in ourselves. And we're even going to talk about the older population, because we're probably getting to our point in our lives where we're caring for our parents, or we're getting older and our nutrition needs change. I start this presentation with this quote because I love it so very much. If you don't come from a healthy family, make sure a healthy family comes from you. It is, as a mom, it is my goal. I want to teach my kids how to eat healthy and how to know which foods to choose, because a lot of the problem with kids these days is they're not educated on what food is healthy and why we should eat healthy foods and what healthy foods can prevent. So we'll talk about that. Now, for those of you that hopped on a second later, I think that might have just been Teresa, maybe not. No, I think you've been in there. So Teresa or Savannah, do you guys have any kids? Just curious. All right. So now we're going to go through, kind of jump through the different age groups of children, through adults, through elderly, and we're going to talk a little bit about pregnancy. And then we're just going to break down these first, and then we'll move on. All right. Teresa, you have grown children. I have a 4 and a 5-year-old. Would you like one if you miss them? If you miss young children, I am willing to deliver. You can pick which one you want. I'll bring one over. Just kidding. Okay. All right. So, and Samantha said not yet. Okay. So under a year old, we'll just kind of run through these and stop me with questions along the way. So under a year old is when your baby begins to eventually try solid foods. And this happens, anywhere between 4 and 6 months. We need to be considerate of foods that are going to cause choking hazards. Something also that we should be aware of is that a lot of the foods that we feed our babies, like cereals and oatmeals, are fortified with vitamin D, because a lot of times babies aren't getting enough vitamin D. But then let's talk more about the ages where nutrition, the food that we're actually eating, really matters more, because under a year, they're getting a lot of their nutrition from milk. So after that is when we're going to focus more on. So this is when kids try solid foods and they develop a taste palate. They like things or they don't like things. Make sure that you're offering a variety of different colors and flavors. Okay. As a mom, I made sure that I did not offer my first baby food, or a lot of baby foods when they were really little, were super sweet things, because we like sweets. So get children and young, like babies, used to eating foods that aren't sweet, and they'll be more likely to want to or eat them later in life. Because if they're just used to always eating things like green beans and broccoli as a side, they'll just become accustomed to it. 1 to 2 years old and older, I won't keep repeating myself, limit juice intake. Juice is given a lot of times at schools because it is very inexpensive, and schools have to meet a certain requirements when it comes to fruits and vegetable intake. Well, schools can do that by providing juice. However, juice is a lot of calories and it doesn't provide any fullness. So limiting juice or diluting juice is something that should start at a very young age, always offering water first. And then very simple things like teaching a young child how to wash their hands is things that need to happen at 1 and 2. All right, 2 and 3. They can talk. They have a little bit of opinions. So giving them choices. Okay. Would you like peas or do you want carrots? Do you want, I'm going to mute you, sorry. Yeah, what side would you like? Things like that. Get them involved. This is when kids become picky. Again, they get opinions. So use positive reinforcement. If a child tries something that you probably know that they're not going to like, and they at least try it, use that positive reinforcement. At a young age, we don't want to make kids eat anything that they don't want to eat, because I think of back when I was a kid and my mom would serve beets, like, the root vegetable, out of a can at room temperature. And to this day, no matter how beets are prepared, I refuse to eat them. So try not to force them to eat food. Kids at a young age don't need much protein. A lot of times we focus on giving a lot of protein, and I'll talk about that more when we get to adults. But ages 2 to 3 years old only need 2 ounces of protein a day. That is a very small amount of protein. So we don't need to force that. They need about 3 ounces of grains and 2 cups of dairy. Now, at 4 to 8 years old, their protein needs increase to 4 ounces. Again, that's not a ton. So make sure that you're not over serving. This age needs about 2.5 cups of dairy and 5 ounces of grain. Talking about dairy with kids because dairy is our main source of calcium, and we can only absorb calcium for so many years, and those are during those childhood years. When we reach a certain age, we stop absorbing that calcium, and we still need calcium intake to prevent bone loss, but this is when we're growing really strong bones. So making sure that we're choosing those healthy choices when it comes to dairy products. All right, 9 to 13 years old. These kids can read. These kids can do a little bit of math. So that means they can actually cook. This is the time where we want to get these kids in the kitchen, teaching them life skills that they will use. If your kid is, 14, 15, they can really cook an entire meal. I promise it is possible. My kids, like I said, are very young. Sorry, that's my dog. My kids are young and they already are helping me cook foods. And that actually is something that helps them become less picky of eaters, is when they, or even if it's a spouse that's a picky eater, if they're involved in the menu planning, they're more likely to eat a food. So make sure that you're not just taking on the burden of cooking for the family alone. If you do have a picky eater, try combination foods, things that they really like with something that they might not like. So if they really don't like broccoli, put it with the mac and cheese. They're more likely to try it if it is with a food that they want. This is also the age group, both of these age groups, where they're at school and they're making their own choices. You need to start that processed foods, those foods that they want to reach for, aren't going to do them any good. They're processed foods, they're very high in that saturated fat. They can even have trans fats, sodium, and teaching them the effects of choosing healthier foods on their bodies later in life than choosing ultra processed foods. Again, these kids are not learning this at school, so we need to be teaching them. All right. So for this age group, our girls for the 9 to 13 only need 5 ounces of protein and boys 6. They both need around 3 cups of dairy. As they get a little bit older, girls need 5 ounces of protein and the boys need about 6.5 ounces of protein. So not a lot. And then I put this on here because if we do have kids, a lot of us don't actually know how much protein or how many fruits and vegetable servings a day that our kids do need. So it's a good thing to just look at. All right, now let's talk about where, adults, where we are right now. Okay, 19 to 30-year-old. So Teresa, how old are your children in this age group? The 19 to 30-year-old. This is the age where we are getting out on our own. You're learning how to kind of cook for yourself and become independent, and maybe not eating the best, healthiest foods, because this is the time where you usually don't have a ton of extra money and you're establishing yourself in your career. Oh, okay. All right. Nice to know, Teresa. So we want to make sure that when I'm like educating this population, I usually tell them to find fast, easy, convenient foods that work for them that are healthy. Like a rotisserie chicken and a bag of salad is always going to be faster or healthier than fast food. And as fast. So finding little solutions that way, but again, limiting that processed food. This is also the age where I really it sounds elementary, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but focusing on eating a lot of different colors, fruits and vegetables. And we'll talk about, like I said, in a minute. And 19 to 30-year-old, this is where we need to be exercising, because once we get that 31 to 50 age group, we want that to be part of our normal routine. As we age, especially, I think it's after 50 years old, we start to lose muscle mass each year that we're alive. Now, contrary to what any diet infomercial or tea or weight loss shake says there's nothing that you can eat that will actually speed up your metabolism. There's no food out there that's going to make your metabolism work faster. The only thing that you can do is build muscle, and muscle burns 4 times as many calories as fat does. So when we age and our metabolism starts to slow down, we start to think, oh gosh, it must be our metabolism. There's nothing I can do about it. But really, exercise, building muscle, the more muscle you have, you're burning more calories at rest. So encouraging exercise throughout this entire group of people. Now, this 31 to 50 years old, it's going to blow your mind because we as a population really focus on getting a lot of protein. I always say protein because as a general statement, the population, when it comes to like their thoughts on dieting, usually there's some stigma about carbs are bad. And usually that means if you're going to have lower carb diet, you're going to probably be eating a little bit more protein. But women around this age need only about 5 ounces of protein in an entire day, and men 6 ounces of protein. I can't get too much deeper into why protein, it's not much different than carbohydrates. So, but that's for another time. Okay, so 51 plus, like I mentioned, our needs are changing. Our metabolism is slowing down. And when I'm talking about 51 plus, I'm really going to be talking about a little bit later in life, maybe after 60s, 70s, and 80s. But when we get older, so if you're caring for an elderly person, or as we get older, it's good to remember our thirst and our appetite decrease. So I find usually in the older or like the geriatric population that there can be vitamin and mineral deficiencies because they get accustomed to eating certain foods that are quick and easy to cook, because you know when you're older you don't want to be cooking forever, and you're not eating a super balanced diet. I also see dehydration a lot because, again, you're not feeling as thirsty, so you're not drinking as much. So making sure that you are encouraging a lot of fluid intake. Also, they need an increased amount of B vitamins usually, and sometimes vitamin D. Now, pregnancy. A lot of pregnant women love to say, I'm eating for 2. However, most pregnant women don't need a ton of extra calories. I believe in the first 2 trimesters, women need around 300 calories more per day, which really is not much. And then in the 3rd trimester and with breastfeeding, they need about 500 extra calories a day. Again, that's not like a huge amount. So making sure that you are choosing healthy foods and taking your prenatal, especially because of those essential fatty acids. We don't get those naturally. So it's important that we ingest them so that the baby develops normally. All right, now that I've kind of went through all of like the different life stages and how all of that works, we'll really get into the nitty gritty of what we need to do to eat healthy at any age group. All right, number 1, eat the rainbow. It sounds like I'm talking to a child when I say that, because I do when I teach kids, I teach them about eating the rainbow. But I say this to you guys because every different color fruit and vegetable provides different vitamins and minerals. They also provide antioxidants. Now, these are the magical foods that keep our body safe. We've probably all heard of the word antioxidants before, but they are actually what we eat that come from usually produce items that fight off the bad in our body. So the inflammation, the free radicals, the things that cause serious illnesses like cancer. So when we are eating these foods, we really are keeping our immune system healthy. We're preventing chronic illnesses, plus we're building healthy bodies. So for you, it's no matter the age, it is a good idea to think about do I really get any purple, bluish fruits or vegetables throughout the week? How many cups of green vegetables do I get? Really challenging yourself and trying to choose different colored vitamins and minerals. A lot of times we like taking the fast and simple way out. Let me give you an example. Supplements that say, boost your immune system. Well, there are two main components in a lot of those supplements, and that's vitamin C, which is the most. Vitamin C is needed for a healthy immune system, and then there's zinc. Let me tell you something about vitamin C. Vitamin C is something we usually get from these yellow to red, orange colors. It is called a water-soluble vitamin. Water-soluble vitamin means it really isn't stored. Fat-soluble vitamins are stored in fat. Water-soluble vitamins are excreted. So we could be thinking we're taking the easy way out by taking these vitamin C supplements, but what our body can't use, we just pee out anyways. It can't be stored in our body. So rather than taking a supplement that you really don't need to be spending money on, just adding like one of these, two of these fruits or vegetables a day, and you'll be getting everything that you actually need for that healthy immune system. Let's take a little bit of a deeper look. So yellow is good for vision and eye health. Now, immune support is on here a couple times, but it's really for a lot of these at like every color, because that's, yes, but anyways, usually they're the ones that are high in vitamin C. But so yellow, orange, we think carrots, they're good for our eyes and things like that. Orange, it's needed for bone and teeth health. So if you have young kids, or if you're a little bit older in life, especially making sure that you're doing this so you're preventing things like fractures. We're building healthy bones for our kids. Purple, good for brain health. And it's good for inflammation. Again, I keep saying the word inflammation. Inflammation means something is wrong in the body. It's actually, the medical term is like itis. So pancreatitis or bronchitis, it's inflammation. Something is wrong, something is inflamed. And how to prevent that is having a diet rich in these vegetables. Even something like arthritis, it's inflammation. So preventing that, good. Now you think purple, blue, maybe I don't get a lot of that. Cabbage, blueberries, eggplant, red onion. There really are a lot of choices out there. Red promotes heart health, aids against cancer prevention, which is fantastic. And it's also good for people that have had cancer to really be focusing on varying their colors of fruits and vegetables. And again, green for bone and teeth health. We don't just eat fruits and vegetables because they're lower calorie, they're not going to help us gain weight, but if you really dig in deeper to it, there is a lot that are the metabolic processes that our bodies perform really need certain vitamins and minerals we're getting from this stuff. All right, I apologize. Some of these slides skew. I have to upload it into Zoom and it skews. I don't know. I tried. Okay, managing picky eaters. You might be a picky eater. You might have a husband that's a picky eater. You might have a kid that's a picky eater. Let's talk about it. First of all, with kids, a kid, I think I read when I was on USDA.org, you're supposed to introduce a new food 8 times to a child. So don't just let them try it one time and think that they're not going to eat it. And I really truly do have a picky eater, which is so frustrating for me because I'm a dietitian and like people like judge me on what I eat. You guys think that we judge you, but you guys are judging what we eat. So anyways, my little picky eater, I put vegetables on that kid's plate every night. And you know what? He does not like vegetables, but I will occasionally get him to try it. And I want him to know that that's the norm. So always putting a vegetable on the plate. Another thing, limit meal times to 30 minutes. Do not put the plate in front of the child and say, sit here till your dinner is done. Again, we don't need our kids to be finishing plates. That is a habit later in life that leads to overeating. Now, I'm not saying we all don't need to finish our plates, not just kids. We do not, if food is in front of us, we do not have to finish it. I'm not saying we need to throw the food that did not get consumed away. You can save it for later. But just because it's there does not mean you need to eat it. So if you have a picky eater, get them involved with cooking. I'm not kidding. Even husbands, like my husband, I put him to work on those Brussels sprouts just so he'll at least try it. Don't make extra meals. You are not a short order cook, and that is going to set an expectation. That child or whatever is going to expect that you're always going to do that. That's no way for you to live, because you'll be cooking extra meals forever. All right. Now, I have a whole presentation on just this one, but this is truly our biggest battle for kids, for adults, for all of us. It's this processed food. The bottom line is it's good. It tastes good. We love it. We crave it. But the problem is these foods do not make us feel good, and they lead to serious issues. So like I said, I have a whole presentation. It's called You Are What You Eat. And one of the things it looks at is the different foods, how they affect our body. You might have heard like red food dye is really bad. It can cause ADHD. But seriously, there are certain additives, there are certain preservatives, there are certain colorings and flavorings that cause mood disorders, that cause depression. Nitrates, something that they put into lunch meats, cause bloating, all sorts of digestion issues. You could be having problems headaches, chronic headaches, for instance. A lot of processed foods, a side effect of certain preservatives, are headaches. You could be getting these headaches and not even know that they're actually from the processed foods that you're eating. So I'll talk about it later on a slide about balance, but really educating kids that these are okay sometimes, but these need to be not the majority of what we eat, which means moms and dads and yourself, don't keep this in your house. If these foods are in your pantry and these foods are in your refrigerator, it's going to be what you eat. Make sure that your food that you have on hand for yourself and for your family are healthy foods. For me, I do like salty things. I do like crunch. I'm more of a salty person than sweet. So for me, I keep pretzels and popcorn. Both are healthier options than chips. With popcorn, I pop my own. I'm limiting that processing. So find healthier options for things that you love. There is always going to be a healthy option out there. So anyways, that's my rant on that. But it's amazing just the effects that these foods have. Like for example, trans fats. I mean, they're in certain foods and they're hidden in the ingredient list, but I mean, they cause like mood swings, like mood behavior. It's really amazing. Okay, so family dinners. Now, I know life is busy. It's not always practical. I'm just getting into the age of sports. I'm seeing that I'm going different places each night, but even if it is as simple as like 1 or 2 days a week, have family dinners. Teach kids to sit down and interact while we're eating. Because we're in a faster paced world, we tend to eat very quickly, which isn't a good way to be, because usually if we're eating really quickly, we are going to consume more calories, meaning if you inhale a meal, it really does take your mind and your stomach about 20 minutes to align. So if you inhale a meal, and you could really be overeating a lot of extra calories because you just eat too quickly. So teaching kids to, enjoy the food they're eating, to put their fork down in each bite, sipping between bites, and making like a non-distraction dinner a priority. Okay, this is where the disconnect happens. So everyone loves what I say. Usually we're all gung-ho until this point. And it's like, I'm ready to eat healthy. I'm ready to eat healthy. But then I get the excuse, it's too hard or it's too expensive. but it's not. It's just different than what you're used to doing. And these are like truly my tips. And I think the next slide are like for real, my real tips. Number one, if you don't have healthy food, you can't eat it. So make a meal plan each week. I sit down on Sunday mornings, I have a cup of coffee, I do it on the internet, and I look at the ads, I figure out from there what I'm going to cook that way. But plan the menu with your family. So have the kids like say, okay, we're going to try something from the Middle East this week, and like give them a couple recipe options. Or it's also a good way to teach them about different cultures and things like that. If you do have picky kids, bring them grocery shopping with you. Have them help pick out the food. See what they're willing to try. I already said it, but don't make more than one meal. You're setting that expectation that being an extremely picky eater is okay, and that you'll always make 2 meals. And then get your kids in the kitchen. A lot of people, I'm very mad at my mother-in-law for not teaching my husband to cook. He apparently can't learn either, according to him. But these are life skills that your kids and yourself need to know. So even if you're 36 and you're not the best chef, start with a beginner's cookbook. Get out there, try different things. The food you eat directly affects your health. So if you want to be healthy and you want to raise healthy kids, it does take a little bit of work. But I'm always hearing, oh, it's just so much easier to get fast food, or it's just so much easier. It is. However, we can do this. All right, so be a role model. If you have kids and you tell them you have to eat your broccoli, and you sit and you're at the dinner table with them and there's no broccoli on your plate, that doesn't look good. That's like your boss telling you to do something that he does the exact opposite of. So be a role model. Go on family walks together, get some exercise. Same thing with your husband or your spouse or your wife. I keep saying husband, it's because I have a husband. Spouse, whomever. If you want them to start eating healthier, you need to start eating healthier too. Go on walks together. Get here together. It's a lot easier with a support system than just saying, okay, you need to do this. You can't have this. You can't have that. Or same thing. If you're trying to get healthier and your significant other or your family is all eating foods that are not so healthy, it's going to be really hard for you to sustain your change if everyone else around you is doing what you wish you were doing. Okay, so back in the day when most of us were growing up, I would assume, I can't see you guys, but I'm just guessing, there was something called the pyramid. It was like the food guide pyramid, and at the bottom were the grains, at the top were the fats or something, I don't even remember, but it was confusing because then we just didn't really know what to do. But if you don't really know how to plan a healthy meal, Michelle Obama helped create something called My Plate, and it really does make it simple. What I tell people, get half of your plate from fruits and vegetables. I know that at breakfast, you're probably not going to have a whole bunch of veggies. You can do fruits for breakfast. At dinner, you might not have fruit with your dinner, so do half vegetables. So the general rule of thumb, half the plate from fruits and veggies. Grains or carbohydrates should be part of every single meal. Carbohydrates are our body's preferred source of energy, meaning they can be healthy, especially if they're whole grains. So making sure that that is a quarter of your plate. Portion size is very important. Same thing, protein, it should be a quarter of your plate. Now, if you're to go to a steakhouse, I'm in Texas right now. If I were to go to a steakhouse, that steak would be 50 to 75% of my plate. It doesn't need to be that much. Again, we as adults only really need like 5 or 6 ounces of protein a day. So we don't need to be like having these huge portions. And then part of something we forget as adults is we do need dairy with our food. Low-fat dairy are going to be good options that will, like low-fat yogurt, milk, even low-fat frozen yogurt. You want to do the low fat so it doesn't affect your bad cholesterol levels. But it's a good general rule of thumb. So if you think back to your lunch yesterday, What categories did I fall into? All right, so promote balance and moderation. Cake is okay. Pizza is okay. Chips, they're okay. As long as what you're doing, that is just part of it. I will go to a birthday party. I will eat the cake. I will eat the cupcakes. But my normal week is very heavy in fruits and vegetables, moderate in protein. I eat carbs. It's all balance and moderation. What happens is we are in this kind of like sick cycle where we're like, I can't have this food. It's not good for me. You avoid it, avoid it, avoid it, avoid it, avoid it until you can't stop thinking about it. And then you binge on it, or then you just give up on eating healthier because you'd prefer to eat that way. There are tons of studies have shown if you just allow yourself to have some every now and then, you don't feel that restriction. You're more likely to go ahead and make better choices. All right, so this isn't for healthy families. Like these are legitimately like my dietitian tips. If you were my client, this is what I would tell you. Number one, the most important thing, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, take this one thing away. Do not eat while distracted. I bet no one that is in this group right now can say that they truly eat 3 meals a day undistracted. I tell people to do this every day, and I can't manage to do it at all times. Do not eat in front of the TV. Do not eat while scrolling on your phone. Sit and enjoy your food. If you're distracted while eating, not just meals, I mean snacks, anything, you're not, one, being mindful of your hunger versus satiety cues, like how hungry you are versus how full you are. Especially if it's something like a bag of chips, we have no idea how much we've actually consumed if we're distracted. With meals, usually when we're distracted, we're eating very quickly. And again, we might overeat because we haven't even let our stomach and our mind catch up together. So do not eat distracted. You can tell I get really heated. Meal planning. That's the part you got to plan. We plan for everything in our lives. We plan what to wear. We plan what airline we're going to take on our next trip. We plan, which way we're going to go to work. You need to plan your meals throughout the week. If you haven't done it before, I'm not going to lie. It's not easy. It might not be the easiest thing at first, but start with 2 or 3 meals a week. Plan it. It will actually save you money at the grocery store if you have a plan. Keep healthy snacks on hand. So like I showed you that page of like cookies and chips and pizza. Keep healthy snacks in your fridge. Keep them available for your kids to see. If it's there, you'll be more likely to eat it. Rather than if you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to eat healthy today. Let me go to the vending machine and let me choose between a granola bar and that bag of chips. Don't get to that point. Set yourself up for success. Maybe you're not a good chef. Maybe you haven't taken enough of my cooking classes. I'm just kidding. Choose restaurants, even if it's something like quick dining like Panera. Already know the healthier foods that are available. Adding to that, something I should put on this list, don't skip meals. Skipping meals, what happens is our body becomes hungrier. We become very, very hungry. There's a response. It's like a caveman. It's a primal response to eat food, eat it quick, and eat a lot of it. Now, usually the foods that are super quick aren't the healthiest ones. So we never want to get to that point where we're starving because we're going to consume really quickly and we're not going to make the best choice. So, with that meal planning and keeping healthy snacks on hand, make sure that you're also not skipping meals, and snack if you need to snack. Snacks can be good. Keep a water bottle close by. Make sure that we are getting enough fluids. Just checking the time because sometimes I get talking too much. All right, type in the chat. It's just a yes or no question. Do you know how much water you should consume a day? Do you know how much water your kids should consume a day? Michelle says she thinks. Michelle, I don't know how much water, how much extra water a pregnant lady needs. I need to look into that because I do not know. I mean, I know it's more because you have more space, but all right. So general rule of thumb is half of our weight in body, half of our body weight in ounces. So if I am 120 pounds, which I'm not, wishful thinking, divided by 2, which would be 60 ounces. That would be an example. But that's generally how it works. Now there's times where that would be different. If you're at a higher elevation, if it's very hot outside, if you've been exercising, if you've been sick with dieting and or vomiting and diarrhea. Teresa says 140 ounces. Okay, so you can have 140 ounces would be more than a gallon a day. That would be plenty of water. I do want to warn you, there is such a thing as too much water. There's too much of everything. Basically, in our body, we have blood. And when you get your blood tested or checked on your annual physical, the first lab value that you will get back says Na, and that stands for sodium. That gives us a good idea of how hydrated you are. If the sodium is very high, that means you're dehydrated. If the sodium is very low, you're overhydrated. So although I don't know how, I have no idea how tall you are, how much you weigh, anything like that, but 140 ounces would get you, I feel like, more than enough water a day. I don't think that would be too much, but that's not what I mean. I just mean it is possible. People didn't know that in my last time I did this presentation. Usually general weight rule of thumb is weight divided by 2. Now, that's what I like to get in fluid. We also get fluid from things that we eat. A lot of fruits and vegetables are over 90% water. So we do, and things like soup, ice cream, popsicles, anything liquid at room temperature would be considered fluid intake as well. So for me, I generally try to get my fluid per day from half my weight in body weight, or half my body weight in ounces, and then I'll get my food fluid too. All right, for kids 1 to 3 years old, they need 4 cups of fluid a day. If you're 4 to 8 years old, you need somewhere around 5 cups. And then if you're older than the 4 to 8, you need to be about 7 to 8 cups of water a day. Now, if you are a mom or dad and you have sports that you go to with your kids, they love handing out Gatorade and such things. Gatorade is not always indicated, okay? Gatorade is an electrolyte replacement. Gatorade or sports beverages are indicated after an hour or more of vigorous activity or a lot of sweating. It is meant to replace the electrolytes that you have lost. So I usually just like to remind people over an hour of exercise. My 5-year-old, after his soccer game, he does not need a 14-ounce Gatorade. He did not sweat that much because, again, that can mess up your electrolyte balance. A lot of teenagers reach for those. I don't have the exact amount in front of me, but I don't remember. They're in like one of the bigger Gatorades. There's over 30 teaspoons of sugar, 30 grams of added grams of sugar in a Gatorade. So I don't have the exact amount in front of me, something like that. This one got skewed too, but usually with a nutrition label, I would ask you guys, what is the first thing you would look at? I'm just going to tell you what your answers are going to be, I would guess, because this is what I usually get, and I want to make sure I finish on time. I get talking too much. Usually people say calories, they say fat, they say sodium, or they say carbs. Those are my usual answers. But the first thing you need to look at is actually the servings per container. So servings per container. I also like to say on the side over there, make sure you don't focus on those percentages. I get people really worked up. They get worked up. Oh my gosh, 30%. I can't believe it. But this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Most of us need more. Some of us need less. So don't focus on those percentages. They're just an example. All right, my dog is just rolling around the floor. This is not something she normally does. So I'm sorry if you have to hear her. She's a very big dog. So we want less than 10% of our calories from saturated fat every day. Usually fat intake is about 30% of our daily calories. We want to say less than 2,300 milligrams or less of salt. And then where it says sugar alcohols, it should actually say added sugars. And we want less than 10% of our calories per day from those added sugars. Those are things that companies add to the food that we eat to make them more delicious, but usually aren't good. All right, so there's a lot of added sugars in foods that we eat. I was trying to get my one open that shows the exact amounts of these things, but yogurt is a prime example. Let's go to Noosa. I don't know how to pronounce it, Noosa. It is a more expensive style Greek yogurt. One serving of the Noosa yogurt has about 14 grams of added sugar. Chobani Greek yogurt, their blueberry flavor, has about 12. Even Dannon has 12 in their blueberry as well. Be careful. You think you're doing yourself this, you think you're being healthy, but then these companies, they come in and they are making your job even harder. Yogurt's a huge one. Granola bars are another one. Cliff bars. Those are like a more expensive type of breakfast or granola bar. A peanut or a chocolate chip Cliff bar has 20 grams of added sugar. That is a ton. Oatmeal has a ton, some of them, not all of them, the packets of oatmeal. Cereals can have a lot. Even pasta sauce can have a lot of added sugar because they add sugar to counteract the acidity. So when you are looking at a nutrition label, you want to look for words like whole grains, organic. It can be or it can't be. It doesn't have to be organic. You want a short ingredient list. Usually I recommend 10 items or less. Words that you can pronounce are always a good idea on the ingredient list. Avoid words like hydrogenated or trans fats, high fructose corn syrup, food dyes, artificial flavors, preservatives. So those are the bad ones that we want to decrease. All right, sodium intake. A lot of people tell me, well, I don't add salt to anything that I eat. Well, the majority of the sodium that we take in a day isn't from the salt that we salt our food with. It comes from lunch meats, cheeses, anything processed like chips or canned foods or cookies or anything, because salt is a preservative. It helps food be more shelf stable to prevent bacterial growth. So make sure you're looking at the sodium. You really don't want to go more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. A diet that's really high in salt increases our blood pressure and it puts extra work on our heart. So if you make something work extra for a long time, it's not going to last as long as it should. Just think about it that way. All right, so my rule of thumb, a little thing I like to mention when I do this talk is shop the perimeter of the grocery store. If you think about it, the perimeter of the grocery store has those fruits and vegetables, has those fresh meats or minimally processed meats. It has the dairy products. So avoiding those center aisles that have the chips and cookies and all of the things that have been highly, highly processed. So get the bulk of your grocery list, if you can, from the perimeter of the grocery store. And then my last slide before I'm done, and I will have time for questions, is actually about, so I said, kids don't really learn about cooking or a ton about nutrition when they're in school, but it's also teaching kids kitchen safety. Kids need to know that you can't use the same cutting board for raw chicken that you do for your salad. Teaching kids, the internal temperature of ground beef needs to be, things like that. We need to teach them food safety as well. Washing hands often, simple things like that aren't being taught anywhere else. we need to teach them this coming from our, home kitchens. So, I lied. This is the last slide. So if today you've picked up on a couple of things that you're like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. This is great. Start with baby steps. If you're trying to start having healthier choices in your home, make sure that you don't change everything at once. If you change everything at once, it's harder to stick to it. Just start making one change and then building on that. Like, okay, start by adding a salad twice a week. All right, now add fruit as a snack every day. Things like that, building on it, not changing everything at once. All right, last thing. We now have social media like Instagram, LinkedIn are the two big ones that I work with Be More to help create content for. And we ask you guys to follow because we do giveaways and recipes and all that stuff, but we mainly want you guys to follow because we love creating stuff for our clients and we want to know what you want to know more about. Do you want more workouts? Do you want more? We just love feedback from you guys. So if you will, give us a follow. If you won't, that's okay too. All right, do you guys have any questions? On anything? Nutrition related or food related? Yeah, I'm drinking soda water. That counts as fluid. Sometimes I get asked about that. Okay, Teresa, that's a great question. Is there a good way to find a local nutritionist? Well, let me explain something. I usually recommend finding a dietitian. The reason I say that, a nutritionist, in certain states, it's just a self-proclaimed name. There's not like a certification always involved. Sometimes there is. Dietitians actually, so they go to college for, and then they have to become licensed, and it's like a medical license. The good thing about dietitians too is that they're often covered by insurance companies, or at least partially covered by insurance companies. So there's something called Health Profs, HealthProfs.com. And it's a catalog of health professionals, and you can do it by area. And they're usually they have to prove their licensure to be able to go on there. So that's where I would start if I was you. But just being wary of nutritionists, because there are, even the ones that have online degrees, or online certifications, they might not have the best information. Anyone else? Did anyone learn anything? Enjoy this? Awesome. Well, you guys are free to go. Have a good rest of your day. You are very welcome, Teresa, and I hope I see you guys next time. How about the person with diabetes? In regards to what? So diabetes, yes, definitely. If you wanted to find a nutritionist. Diabetes is such a great topic. If you guys, the rest of you want to get off, you can. If you want to stay and ask me a question about diabetes, I am happy to help. That's actually my passion. I love teaching about diabetes. So any specific questions about it will work. One question that I'm asked about diabetes, how can we set up a meal plan? So first of all, diabetes.org or the American Diabetes Association has a lot of sample meal plans on there. But even with diabetes, a common misconception is that you can't have carbohydrates or you need to limit your carbs, but you still should be getting half of your intake a day from carbohydrates. So there are a lot of great resources out there that find meal plans for you. Here, actually, I'm going to type my email into the chat. And if you send me an email, I can send you a couple of resources. There, if you email me, I can send you some resources. But I do want to say insurance usually covers dietitian visits that can help you set up a meal plan and tell you exactly how many like calories and carbs you need. When you have diabetes, it's usually covered by insurance. Awesome, awesome. All right, well, if I don't have any other questions, we're done for today. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much.